Perhaps you've heard that the biggest jump is from week 1 to week 2, which is now underway at Ohio State as they get ready for Western Michigan on Saturday. This is a Tuesday. We're in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. It's Snap Judgments with Bill Landis, Jeremy Birmingham, and I am Austin Ward. We've heard from Ryan Day, Chip Kelly, and Will Howard. What did we learn? Where is the improvement going to come from week 1 to week 2?
I think in quite a few places, it seems like maybe the most obvious place, I think, for a lot of people, and it seemed to be front of mind for Ryan Day, is up front, blocking folks. It's not just the offensive line, though. Like, I'm glad that Ryan Day was asked about perimeter blocking.
No, the tight ends.
Because I thought it was also not great on Saturday. So I think those are the areas where they're going to be really keyed in on. Just a lot of plays that probably would have worked had they just not even blocked them better, blocked anyone, right? Like that kind of stuff. And like that happens in week 1, so it's not the most alarming thing in the world. Like, it's frustrating because you want to see Ohio State come out and beat Akron 85-0. I get that, but they did figure some stuff out in the second half of that game, and Ryan Day was pleased with that and wants to keep that ball rolling now into Western Michigan week and start fast. But I think it begins with just being cleaner and executing a lot of those blocking schemes much better than they were against Akron.
I asked Chip Kelly, because I was going to ask him in the presser, what is the biggest area that you want to see a jump from? Because he brought up the old adage, and I was like, that's what I was going to ask you anyway. So it worked out, and then I decided to run out and
That's
ask
a good thing about adages.
Yeah, they always come up. Yeah. I was like, so what is the area? And he just said consistency. And he said sometimes they were supposed to block a linebacker, and someone just blocked the other linebacker. They were supposed to block a corner, and someone just ran up to the safety. They didn't, and Chip was certainly not going to blame that on inexperience. But the more I think about this past weekend's game, a 52-6 win, where the offense had some moments of looking disjointed in the first half, you have a new quarterback. You have two out of the 3 running backs that played are brand new. You have 3 offensive linemen that were new. You have 2 tight ends that had never started a game before, or 5 tight ends that had really never played in a game. 5 receivers other than Emeka Ibuka, who had never really played in a game in meaningful moments. Jaden Ballard's played a couple, but
Carnell Tate's played.
Carnell Tate, but so as a new starter anyway. But right. That's a brand new offense with a brand new play caller who hadn't been up in the press box since 2008. There's a lot of things where if you were looking for an excuse, I think you could make one. Ohio State has to be better, but they know that. And Chip Kelly said there's nothing that happened on Saturday to the offense that was a result of what Akron did to Ohio State. It was Ohio State not executing the plan. Mm-hmm. And they seem pretty confident. And Ryan Day said, I fully expect they will be better this week. And I hope they are, because I don't know that I can run another live stream ever again based on the comments in there today. But that's really what it comes down to, just execution.
It doesn't seem like Chip Kelly or Ryan Day left Saturday feeling alarmed that they weren't going to get to a point where it was going to be much cleaner and much better. For one, eventually they'll have Donovan Jackson back. He's day-to-day. I don't know if it's going to be Saturday, despite what Ryan Day said after the game against Akron, that he would have had to have suffered a setback to not play against Western Michigan. I don't know.
Was that a change in tone?
It seemed a little change in tone.
I thought so.
Yeah. Again, it is now in season, so we are not going to get the most accurate
shenanigans
injury and availability reports during
Remember how
the week.
The SEC, just like last week, was like, all of our teams need to have a report out by Wednesday. That was cool.
Yeah, the Big Ten come out 2 hours before kickoff. It's great.
Ohio State and the Big Ten are still putting it out. It doesn't mean that it's been accurate. Right. That's the problem.
But I think if you put it out on Wednesday, even if it's inaccurate, I don't know. I guess you could always be like, well, actually, something happened Friday, and then...
Don't make me start talking about availability reports already. Okay. My point is, eventually, Donovan Jackson is going to be back, and eventually, Seth McLaughlin is going to be making his second start and his third start with Ohio State, although I thought he was played pretty well on Saturday. Mm-hmm. But that will be true for Tegra Shabola and Will Howard and all the other people that you mentioned, Berm. I do think sometimes we get ahead of ourselves, and you spend all offseason getting ready for week 1, and you know what the talent is going to look like, and you just expect it to be perfect right off the bat. It's not going to be. But to take it back to what I said there, there's no sense that I got from the coaching staff or Will Howard that they don't believe that this offensive line is going to be much better as they continue to build that foundation.
Yeah, they should think that way. Somebody sent us a text because I said something before the press conference started to the effect of, I rewatched the game on Tuesday morning. Clearly the offensive line was not clean, but it wasn't actually. I didn't think it was actually that bad, and it looked like a lot of stuff that was correctable. And somebody said, look, well, you said that last year too. It's well, that's true. And they did did not do a good enough job of correcting those things. So now it's on the coaches to correct those things. It's not a guarantee they will come out against Western Michigan and correct all of those things.
They also didn't lose to Michigan because of the offensive line.
No, I'm not talking about the offensive line in particular. We're just talking about like lack of execution, not being a clean offense, which they were for much of the season last year. They were not a clean offense. And they were a clean offense for basically the second half against Akron. But they need to be one for an entire game. And then if they're not against Western Michigan, we'll talk about it. I wish we could make them do it. I don't have that power. I would love to.
You don't?
I don't.
Okay.
If I did, I would do it, and then I would bet a lot of money, and then I would be rich. But unfortunately, that's not the case. So we'll see. Like I do think it is I know given the opponent it might sound crazy, like a fairly big week for sort of putting your money where your mouth is, right? If you talked a big game about how you were playing up front, how much you wanted to run the ball, and then it did not look very good in your very first game, here's an opportunity to make up for it against another opponent who should be overmatched. So we'll see how they respond to it, but they absolutely can, and I think probably will, come out and be rocking off the ball on Saturday night.
And it's an opponent they have film on, which they, you go into Akron, you don't know what they're going to do. You have some guesses based on what they were a year ago, but there's a lot of things that go into week one that can get wonky. I think from Ohio State's perspective, like, did you feel like Ryan Day in his press conference was trying to emphasize the point that maybe they weren't going as hard as he wanted them to? Or did you?
I kind of felt, that's probably the right way to say it. Yeah.
I don't. Yes and no. I think it was like there were probably 3 or 4 plays that happened on special teams that were burned into his brain. I don't think that was the case for the offense or the defense collectively. Maybe I'll have to listen to it again to pick up what you might have heard.
I think it was in response to Tim May's first question. Like it seemed like he was trying to say, like, we have to enjoy being there. And I think what I'm trying to say is, like, it felt like he was saying that maybe the guys were a little too far in their own heads and not.
Yeah, but I don't know I don't think that was related to effort or energy. I think that's Ryan Day made, and Ross Bjork as well, made similar comments on Thursday during the radio show about a shift in mentality for Ohio State where the pressure of trying to win every single game has removed some of the enjoyment of actually playing the game, and that they need to rediscover some of that. We're going to talk about that with Nicole Cox at Roosters later on, because she was really enamored with that comment and thinks that that's sort of something that Ohio State has to recapture as a whole, whether that's coverage of Ohio State, whether that's the fan base for Ohio State, whether that's the team itself or the coaching staff.
Was there pregame dancing? I wasn't out there.
There wasn't pregame dancing. They removed that.
Good. There shouldn't be.
How do you say you want more fun?
You want more fun, but you've removed some of the things that the team really enjoyed to do. Like
touchdowns are fun. I agree with Ryan Day. Score touchdowns, celebrate those. You don't need to dance before anyone's done anything. Dance after.
I don't disagree with you. I was just wondering, because it does seem those two ideas are at odds with each other. Like if you want the guys to be out there and being loose, you walk into the stadium listening to a song about many men trying to murder you, and then you take away dancing. You know what I mean?
You gotta earn dancing.
You gotta earn dancing. Okay,
it's footloose.
That's fine. I don't know. I mean, dude, the premise here was about energy and effort, and I think that it was a handful of plays that was special team specific from what I can recall.
Yeah, he did mention specifically special teams plays that last like 12 to 14 seconds where he thought the effort was really good for about 8 seconds and then kind of disappeared after that. So it was interesting to me sort of in general that Ryan Day got into a lot of special team specifics when I just don't think he would have done that otherwise. And he was asked about what thing like pleased him the most on Saturday, and the first thing he talked about was punt return. It's like, this is new. This is a different perspective on a game from Ryan Day.
An important perspective.
Yeah, no, I think we saw immediate dividends on special teams from the new kind of structure they have going on, particularly at punt return. But I think across the board, it was just like a tight special teams operation, which was nice to see.
When we've talked about the issues from the last couple of years and how those can cost Ohio State games, I think that Ryan Day has certainly realized that and made coaching staff adjustments to get the results. And I think that maybe that can trickle down to the personnel as well. He seemed pretty upset that, and he didn't say Jaden Ballard specifically, but that first kickoff return was not for a touchdown. He went back to the very first play of the game and was like, we let one get away. Like, what? This team hasn't had a kickoff return for a touchdown in 14 years. And like, you're going to be mad that the first one of the season didn't go? But he was. And if that's a sign of where things are going with the new alignment, which includes Ryan Day being more involved, good. Like, that's the whole point. They they did get into games in the last couple of years where one special teams miscue cost them a win or multiple games.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to note that he brought up Rob Keys and how Rob is running it, and I'm very involved. Like he's said that multiple times. Like I think he wants to take ownership of something because he's given up the play calling and a little bit of the rest of the offense to Chip Kelly. And I think that I think it's good if your head coach is going out and saying, this is now something I'm putting my reputation on the line for. And, that's what Urban Meyer spent all his time working on special teams, or a lot of his time on special teams. Jim Tressel was obviously pretty involved with special teams. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Jim Tressel's been around here and Ryan Day is taking on a little bit more of that vibe. I don't know. Did Ryan Day seem like he was having fun today? Did anyone ask him if this was fun today?
He seemed fun.
Not today.
Okay.
He gets asked about it a lot, more than most coaches,
He didn't seem like he was having, it didn't seem like a guy, did he seem loose? Or did he seem to the point? Because to me, he felt like he was pretty direct and to the point today.
Yeah, because they got to play better than they played against Akron.
Yes, better.
I talked to him before the press conference started, and I thought that he was pretty loose. I've definitely talked to him before non-conference games in the last couple of years where it was like, this guy really needs to relax a little bit.
Did he ask about the question of the day?
No, he didn't. But
what was the question of the day?
I didn't have
Burn didn't bring one because he was in traffic.
And
but I saw Mick Marotti in the hallway, and he's like, so what's the question of the day? I'm like, I don't have one.
Didn't get it. So now they're out of their routine for week 2.
Wow.
You're going to have to keep that in mind.
My game score. Okay.
Change your game score accordingly. What else did we actually learn about the team today, Bill?
It's a great question. I don't know. I thought some of the stuff about, like I was asking about it specifically, but Will Howard kind of brought it up on his own about maybe missing some opportunities to perhaps use his legs a little more on some of the plays where he was kind of scrambling around. I think probably the two, at least the one that I can remember is one where he ran backwards like 30 yards and then just threw the ball out of bounds.
Yeah.
Maybe that was an opportunity to pick up something for the offense. I think that drive did not end with points, if I'm remembering correctly. Obviously, the play that Berm asked him about that was kind of foolish, where he threw the ball to Travion going to the ground. So, he's still, for a guy who's as experienced as he is still figuring stuff out, figuring out exactly what is being asked of him in this offense.
He seemed mad when I asked him that question.
Yeah, well, I'm sure he knew it was coming up, right? But it was like,
I wanted to ask it from a perspective of, like, you said you don't need to be Superman. Were you trying to be Superman in that moment and just reverting to like, oh, I'm going to do this? Mm-hmm. Or was it, oh my gosh, I have so many great players around me, I can try things that I would have never in a million years tried before?
Nobody likes to be publicly asked about their worst moments.
There's also like the one bad play.
Right. So, I think that's why it's worth asking. It's the one play on the day where you're like,
I'm not saying it wasn't worth asking. I'm just saying that's probably why he looked at you like maybe I don't.
He looked like he was mad at me for asking it. And I'm like, sorry, I didn't want to put you on the spot. But I was just curious about the mentality, because that's a play that at Kansas State he would have had to try to make in a dozen different ways. And like when you have aliens around you like you do now, you don't need to do that, because the next play you can just throw a ball to Jeremiah Smith. So that was really what I was trying to get.
While someone's dragging him down the other way.
That's really what I was asking it for.
Well, no one's going to take exception with you asking the question, Merm. You can also understand why he wouldn't, because he said he made some decisions that he wanted back, and he probably didn't want to go into tremendous detail about what exactly was going through his mind, because clearly that was a moment where he wasn't thinking. He knows that can't happen again.
I think you probably just get mad about that because there's only one answer, which is like, that was dumb. and I won't do it again.
Yeah. It's not much more.
I'm just trying to get into the deeper depths. But again, I've said this every single time we've talked to Will Howard, and this will probably become a problem for everyone all year long, or a punch point. I love listening to Will Howard talk about his role here. Like, the kid just really does seem to get it. And when we were on the live stream during the press conference, and someone, because last year I don't want to say complained, but I mentioned a few times that I thought the team lacked a leadership quality from its leaders, that were not vocal leaders. They were not guys, they were going to be first guy in the weight room. They were going to be, people who would have your back in a fight, but I don't know that they were always the guys who wanted to stand up and talk about the situation. And I do not feel that way about this year's team at all. And that starts with Will Howard, who is just very impressive.
Yep.
Yeah, he's scheduled to do those quarterback press conferences every Tuesday. And he said afterwards, whether that's good or bad, he's going to continue to take that accountability. And that's that should be the baseline requirement if you're going to be the starting quarterback at Ohio State. And I understand that it's not always going to be. There can be exceptions to that rule, and he's probably going to earn some weeks where we don't need to talk to him. But you can't really ask for more than what he's provided through 8.5 months here, now into 9. Like, he still only played one time, but I do think it's important to watch how that's going to transpire because it's becoming routine and rhythm for him. And if he's going to make a jump from week 1 to week 2, what does that look like? I think that's pretty exciting to see.
He said, I had a quote from him on my phone. He said he wants to be the guy that the team can look to, like in the most important moments. And I don't know if they've experienced one yet, and probably won't experience one for a couple of weeks, but that he's trying to lay that groundwork now, I think matters tremendously. So whether it's something seemingly as silly as standing up in front of us and answering questions about whatever, good or bad, but then some of the stuff he does on the field too, right? When he's, I don't know, putting a little extra flash on a play, or like I said on the daily this morning, like smiling at defenders, it seemed like before a play. Like I think he's got some qualities that people really feed off of. And Ohio State was just missing that last year, and you need it from your quarterback. So I think it's going to get them a long way.
Berm, what else did you learn?
I asked about Arvell Reese because the more I rewatched the game, I'm like, I don't know.
But he needs to play more.
But he needs to play, and he needs to play a lot. And I'm not going to go ahead and say that I think he outplayed Sonny Styles or that he should be the starter next to Cody Simon. But I think there's a conversation. If he's able to replicate Saturday's game this Saturday, I don't know how we don't have that conversation, because he was the one defender outside of the superstars that we all knew, the known commodities coming in. I mean, Jack Sawyer obviously put his stamp on Ben Finley over and over and over and over. But Arvell was the one guy who you just kind of felt on multiple plays. You're like, there he is again. How did he get there? How did he? And I didn't see that out of any of the other linebackers on Saturday. Mm-hmm. And so to me, like, that is as surprising a revelation as I think from a player from freshman year to second year that I've maybe ever seen, especially for a guy who didn't play the position last year.
That's the craziest thing.
He was everywhere. And Ryan Day, I thought was really interesting, said that early last week he was not practicing very well. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden he just decided it just flipped. And then he goes out and he was clearly, in my opinion, the best linebacker on the field on Saturday. And now you have to figure out the role.
It's kind of amusing to me because Arvell talked about it during training camp. It's like, well, at this time a year ago, I was learning how to play edge and like rushing the passer. Wasn't doing any linebacker stuff. So it was like restarting again for him back in March and April, and how far he's come along. Now Ohio State's in a position where like CJ Hicks should probably be doing edge stuff. Like he showed in that game the things that he's going to do best are when you blitz him at the quarterback. Some of the other linebacker stuff, he can get better. Maybe he'll work through these growing pains. No, by no means am I saying doesn't have a role, can't get better. The inexperience or whatever will fade away, and he can be really good there because he's got the athleticism. But I almost feel more than ever like CJ Hicks is barreling into a Baron Browning situation, and everyone's going to hate it.
I hope not. I really hope they find a way to use him. And part of me is a little more hopeful about that, given the situation that Ryan Day finds himself in, where I think he can just like use up a little more of his brain power to think about those kind of things. Like I like that he said he felt Arvell like earned more time at the way he played. I don't even know if that's something Ryan Day would have paid attention to prior to this year, right? So
I think you would have said that's Jim's call or whatever.
Right. So maybe if he's seeing if he has time now on the sideline to check in with people, to pay more attention to what's going on the defense, to watch more defensive film, to meet with the defense more, if he's picking up on more of that stuff, like he is the guy, ultimately decisions come down to him. So I think he should be saying like, let's do this with CJ. Let's play Arvell more. I don't know that he definitely is, but I'm a little more hopeful that he might be because of the dynamic.
You can have situational players at multiple different positions. We always talk about situational players as like a third down back or a scat back or a slot receiver. Mm-hmm. Like CJ Hicks does one thing really, really well. Do that thing with him. Yep. And don't try to fit a square peg into a round hole. And that's what it looks like when he's at linebacker to me. And I love CJ, and he knows that. But like when you put Arvell out there, that looked normal, and that looked how a linebacker is supposed to play at Ohio State.
Mm-hmm. How come it's never a round peg into a square hole?
It might be
because it would
just fit in there. But what if it's a smaller square than it is a?
It's all about the size of the hole. Relative to the peg, ultimately, is what you're getting at, right, Bill? Bill, is that what you're saying?
I don't think anybody said that.
Square peg, round hole.
I knew as soon as I said that.
You really regretted doing that, didn't you?
I knew where it was going to
go. It went the wrong way. But
we're getting ready for Roosters with Bobby Carpenter. Gotta
easing into week 2 as well for Ohio State after the opener and the first, midweek update review of what happened against Akron on Saturday as the Buckeyes turn the page to get ready for Western Michigan on prime time Saturday in the Horseshoe. These have been Snap Judgments. That is Bill Landis. He's Jeremy Birmingham. I'm Austin Ward. We'll talk to you later.